We're going to call to order the regular meeting of the Solvang City Council for January the 8th, 2018. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Jameson?
Here.
Toussaint?
Here.
Waite?
Present.
Zimmerman?
Present.
Mayor Richardson?
Here. Mrs. Waite, will you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, this is where we get even with the sheriff. Sean, we have a proclamation for you. Would you come forward so I could read this to you, please? I have to say that this is my favorite Danish sheriff, Sean O'Grady. In appreciation, Lieutenant Sean O'Grady for his service to the City of Solvang. Whereas the City of Solvang wishes to recognize the contributions of Lieutenant Sean O'Grady for his meritorious service to the City of Solvang, serving as the police chief for the last 4 years. And whereas he's always conducted himself in a highly professional manner and demonstrated a sincere concern for our community. And whereas at City Council meetings, it appears that Lieutenant O'Grady is intently studying each item the council is dealing with. However, a closer look reveals he's intently surfing the web on his cell phone. And whereas Sean's humorous personality has been thoroughly enjoyed at weekly staff meetings, and his satirical slant on incident reports will be missed, especially the ones where he indicates that once again, a Solvang resident has come to the station or to the adjacent parking lot to turn themselves in. And whereas Lieutenant O'Grady has always provided Solvang more than the 1/3 of a lieutenant per Solvang contract, sometimes we receive the services of a whole lieutenant. And whereas when told there was a speeding problem in Solvang, Lieutenant O'Grady sought out the most prolific ticket writer in the department to assist in rectifying the problem. And whereas Sean O'Grady has, by faithful and loyal devotion to his responsibilities, rendered a dedicated service to the City of Solvang, helping to preserve the rights and security of the citizens and visitors alike. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Jim Richardson, on behalf of the Solvang City Council, staff, and community, thank Lieutenant Sean O'Grady for helping to keep our area safe and wish him well as he moves on to his next assignment.
Mayor Richardson and council members, thank you very much for this wonderful proclamation. And it has actually, all kidding aside, it's been a real honor to be here. I worked here as a detective many years ago and always liked the Central Stations area and Solvang. And like I said, it was a real honor to work here. The people that are live in this area are second to none. They're very accommodating and just good people. And I was very happy to be here, and I'm kind of sad to leave. I wish I could stay. But I just want to clear things up. I wasn't on the web back there. I'm searching policy and legal updates and things like that. So anyways, like I said again, thank you very much. It's been an honor to serve.
No, I've seen you in action, and I've seen you meet with the community and people in the community and to help them out with their problems. And I really appreciate what you've done and your availability to the community. Okay. Again, thanks very much.
And as far as the tickets go, any complaints can go to Lieutenant Eddie Schway, sitting in the back. And I know he's going to make an excellent lieutenant for this area. He's also a local and has worked here many years, and so I'm leaving it in good hands. Thank you. All right, thank you.
City Manager's report.
First, I would like to say thanks to Sean. I mean, he's been the longest serving and under my duration as city manager, and he's definitely stepped up to the task. And as I mentioned, he does make our senior staff meetings quite interesting with his take on these incident reports. So. Next, the tree burn we had last Friday. I want to thank the fire department for coming out and doing their safety demonstration, and the Parks and Rec department, I think, put on a great show. Fred thinks that was probably one of our largest attended tree burns that we've had. And we did finally do some math on it, and this would have been our 30th tree burn that we 30th in a row. Yeah, or we had the 1 year, 2 years ago for the rain, but yeah. And then thirdly, just as we hear the rain in the background, we do have sand and some bags available at the Vets Hall. Bags are available for purchase, but the sandbox will always be full for the residents to come and pick up the sand there at the Vets Hall.
Thank you. Public communications, written or verbal. At this time, please direct comments to the City Council regarding consent calendar items or matters not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the Council. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. I have some speaker slips. David Goldstein.
Yes, Mayor Richardson, members of the council. My name is David Goldstein. I am not a resident of Solvang, but I was a businessman here for many, many years. And I have several items that I've been collecting over the past couple of years, and I want to get them all off my chest. So I'm coming tonight when I have 5 minutes instead of next week when I'll have 3 minutes. Yeah. So this won't take long, though. Number one item. I want to thank the council, sincerely thank the council for their support of the library, the Solvang Library. And I want to mention that, you know, the keeping the library open is one item, but I understand you now have a committee that's looking into the library, and I would encourage you to really consider and support additions to the library and additions to their services so they can become an even better institution in our city. We've had a library since the day the city was formed, and in 1911, and we should really support it and stay with it. Second item, Hans Christian Andersen Park. You know, that park is a gem. There's a lot that can be done with it, a lot of school activities and things as far as outdoor activities for children that don't get outside as much as they should, maybe because of computer gaming or whatever. But I think the park can, you know, we can think about using the park as a natural, native area that perhaps the Parks Department or somebody could offer programs in and develop certain areas of it to really enhance it, to become anything from butterfly refuges to you know, just local native habitat, and get the kids out there to appreciate it. The third thing is Centennial Plaza. Again, a thank you to the city for finally coming through and providing the railings for the for the steps. And I swear I'm not making this up. I was walking through there maybe a week after those railings went in, coming from the parking lot to the stairs. And there was a woman in front of me that was on the second stair. And she, I don't know, lost her balance, whatever. And she went for that rail, and that's the only thing that kept her up. So I'm really happy you did it. I'm really pleased with how that park came out and how the city's maintaining it. It was probably one of the better projects I did in my 40 years of architecting around here. The fourth thing is, I'm going through it again, that's why it came to mind. I'm suggesting that the city look into setting up some kind of system where somebody coming to the city wanting to find out what it's going to cost to build a building or to process a plan check, that kind of thing. Somebody in the city, I'm suggesting that somebody in the city be set up to be able to put a thorough estimate, an estimate that's explained that it's an estimate of all the costs they're going to run into. I've always had this issue with not only the city of Solvang, but every place. You go, you ask the planning department, what's it going to cost to get my permit so I can build the building? And the answer is, well, our fees are $1,600. What about water fees? Oh, you have to ask the water department. What about building permit fees? You have to ask the building department. What about this fee, that fee, the other fee? It gets expensive. And I think there should be some way that the city, given just a hand-drawn sketch on a piece of graph paper of what somebody would like to do, could put fees together so somebody wanting to do an addition to their house will know that, oh, it's going to cost, because I have to get a bigger water meter or whatever, it's going to cost $18,000 in city fees to do this. So it gets to be a lot of money and could influence somebody's decision. Finally, I should have talked to you, Mayor, before I bring this up, but really, 5 minutes? No. Anyhow, let me just say that, there's a group of mayors and governors throughout the country that have formed the Mayor's National Climate Action Agenda. Cities that have supported the Paris Accord on climate change, that although the federal government has set that aside right now, the mayors have stepped in and tried to do this to coordinate efforts to fight climate change. And cities around here, Santa Barbara, Goleta, San Luis, Morro Bay, Ojai, Ventura, are all part of that action agenda. And if you want to look up information on it, you go to climatemayors.org, and it'll have information for it. And I think not only it would well serve the city to be part of that action to act in favor of our maintaining our climate. Thank you.
Thank you, David. One thing, you may not be a resident of the city, but your stamp is all over it. You've got some beautiful architecture work within our city, and it's really greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Christiansen, excuse me.
As council members, thanks for that pronunciation of my name. Grandparents would be very, very pleased. Before I start, I just wanted to compliment what David just talked about insofar as the library is concerned. Thank you for your help. Thank you for support. I was honored to be on that board, the library board with David for a number of years. And David, outstanding member, very important to this valley and to this community having that resource. They do a good job over there. Your support's needed, and most appreciate it. Richard Christensen, been a resident of the Valley here for forever. And I'm here to discuss the car wash system at the fire station. I'm puzzled, very puzzled. Have the zoning issues been considered, discussed, and researched for the legalities involved? I would imagine that the fire station is under some type of an organizational zoning, but to put a car wash right next to a residential piece of property is, in my judgment, a reverse condemnation. I have received estimates from two different financial real estate people that the effect on the value of that property was probably in excess of $100,000 by having a car wash next to it. Does this mean that I have a house here in town that you can build a car wash next to it because of the authority of the city of Solvang? Makes absolutely no sense to me. You've got car washes in Buellton, you've got car washes in Santa Ynez. The buses go to Santa Ynez. I know they're not going to Los Olivos in this short future here. Have them washed there. Putting in a car wash in a town that's got maybe 5,000 people, in my judgment, is over the top and ludicrous. There's noise issues, there's overspray issues, and frankly, why is it needed? It makes no sense, and I would like to see a definitive answer either through the newspaper or an email or some communication as to what this is all about, because it can't be about car washes. It just can't be. Also, is it recycled water? Buellton has recycled water. I don't know if it does in Santa Ynez. Solvang has no water. It has no groundwater basin. That's been shown for years. Buellton has groundwaters. Santa Ynez has groundwater. How can you possibly justify a car wash for several buses and some city trucks? Wow. How can you possibly justify the expending of city funds, my funds, and the rest of us for that type of an enterprise? Secondarily, and I'll be quick, the horse shelter issue gnarls at me. I used to haul hay off the Buell Flat when I was in high school. We did it with horses. It was hot. The summers were, excuse the expression, damned hot. They say it's hot now. It was hotter then because weather cycles. We hauled hay. Hay is very heavy. The horses got hot. What did we do? Washed them down with hoses out of the wells, put a tarp over the top of them periodically, put some cooling blankets on them with water. There's lots of ways to cool down the horses. Spending taxpayer money to fund a personal enterprise is a gift of public funds, and I say to you in all sincerity, that's unlawful. If they want a shelter for their horses, marvelous. I think it's a wonderful, humane thing to do. But let them pay for it. If they don't have the money, raise the rate 50 cents per person. But it's not city obligation. Lastly, and I've spoken to this before, we're a city of about 5,000 people. We have millions of tourists coming into town. The ratio is totally out of whack as far as residents to tourists. Totally out of whack. There needs to be a better balance because in my judgment, the council favors the tourism way over the people who are locally here. The reason you're here, the reason I'm here, is because of the local community, not because of the tourism. Tourism is important. It pays for some of the needs of the city. But the needs of the city are far greater because we have tourism. If we had zero tourism or far less, you would have less needs, therefore less need for tourism revenue. There are issues to face, and I know you have conflicts. I understand those conflicts. I've been a politician. I used to be on the parking district board. I can't imagine what happened to the parking district funds. They seem to have disappeared off the balance sheet. So I'm suggesting again, and I've said it before, that the council appoint some type of an ad hoc committee of a cross-section of community leaders, community people, community thinkers, non-compromisable folks, business leaders, intellectual leaders, to help the council with some of these difficult, conflicting decisions that they need to make. We need that information. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cynthia Santana.
Hello. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, city staff, Brad, fellow neighbors that are here. Hello. Members of the TV audience, hello. I sent Jim and the rest of the council an email earlier this morning, and I'd like to read just highlights of it because in interest of time, we don't have much time. Okay, so in my email, I said that I spoke to Jim and Neil yesterday regarding the car wash location that the city is proposing to put in. It's located directly next door to my house. By the way, I live at 362nd Street. I've been a Solvang resident for 18 years. It's located, potentially being located directly next door to my house, in between the fire station wall and my fence. And out of all of the locations that the city could have picked, they picked to have a car wash next door to a house in a residential neighborhood. I asked Jim approximately 2 years ago to relocate this site. But since speaking to Jim and Neil yesterday, I realized that no one has ever asked us as to the distance of this car wash, and I understand it's a concrete slab and a wand. No one has ever asked us the distance of this car wash from our bathroom and bedroom windows, which happen to be located on this side of the fence next to the proposed car wash. Had anybody asked, city staff would have measured and realized that the distance from the proposed drain to my bathroom window is 28 feet. And to my bedroom window, 30 feet. Ladies, how would you like to have someone washing their vehicle? And I'm not talking about a car. I'm talking about a fire truck, 14, 15, 16 feet high. Not a little car. How would you like to have someone washing their vehicle peering into your bedroom and bathroom? Men, how would you like having your privacy violated? How comfortable would you feel knowing that your wife could have their privacy invaded with a straight shot to what is going on in your bedroom and in your bathroom? I can go on, but I'm asking that this car wash be relocated. Please put this item on the council agenda and select a more suitable and appropriate location. Please don't overlook my concern. And I can also list other concerns such as potential water damage from overspray, but I trust that you can surmise that on your own accord. Now, there are numerous city sewer lines all over this city that I understand the car wash drain needs to be tapped into. It doesn't have to be right next to a residential neighborhood, and it shouldn't be. I can think of at least 2 different areas outside of a residential area. One is out at Alisal Glen near the state watershed, and one is at Hans Christian Andersen Park, which David alluded to, next to the new city well. Both locations can be tied into the city sewer, and they are away from a residential area. So, please relocate this car wash outside a residential area. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Cindy. Would you like to answer that now, or would you like to wait?
Well, I guess if there's a desire to bring it back as a council item, then we can present the
I think that would be a good idea.
okay. So
Okay, so you put it on the agenda for a
again, for a future agenda.
future meeting? Thank you, Cynthia. Tracy Beard.
Just my two. Okay, we have a walk shop wine and dine map in Mandarin that has come out on the 20th of December, right before after you guys have left council for the season. So I wanted to let everyone know we do have a walk shop and wine dine map out there, and it's out to the public, and I think it's being received very well. And we wanted to let everyone know that we have our new business installation for the Chamber of Commerce on January 11th from 5 to 7 at the Lansby Hotel. And we'd like to invite everyone to come and meet our new board members and to hear what our last year's accomplishments were. And we'd like to get on the agenda to go over what we've done from last year with you guys next month.
I have no other speakers. Does anybody wish to speak now? Please come up and identify yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Rika Rasmussen. I'm a resident of Solvang down on First Street. And I want to say thank you for, I think it was a wise decision to buy this lot across the street. So I commend you on your decision to do that. The one thing I'm concerned about is, and I wasn't going to speak, and now I'm here and I'm thinking about it, is I'm concerned there's talk in town that you guys want to, or that somebody wants to turn it into parking. And I don't have a problem with it being parking, but I do have a problem if it turns into being parking for buses, because I walk in town a lot, and I used to live on Oak Street, and the buses are starting to do the let's take Oak Street as a bypass. Most of them do come down Alisal, but I have a real concern in the fact that Oak Street there's all kinds of residents down there. It's part of the residential part of town. There's lots of walking. There's lots of people pushing baby strollers. There's lots of kids getting off of buses. And I think I'm gonna pop a cork if I see one more bus driving down Oak Street at 35 or 40 or 45 miles an hour. I mean, those guys just, it's crazy making. So that's it. So when you think about what you're going to be doing with that lot, take that into account, please. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we'll come back to the council. For council comments and requests, would you like to start, Joni?
I just want you to know I heard what you said, and I understand what you're saying. Both of you, both of the ladies. And Richard, too. And Mr. Goldstein, you think that I mean, you've done more than just the gazebo at the Centennial Plaza. Your mark is all over this community, and thank you, and I'm so sad that you're not going to be doing things like this anymore. Maybe we can bribe you. Maybe we can bribe you. I really don't have much to say this evening, except I hope that everybody had a good holiday season. I wish you all a happy new year. I hope that you as individuals and we as a community prosper, and we are healthy and happy, and the Danes are the happiest people in the world, supposedly, so let's carry that on. That's all.
Mr. Toussaint?
Let's see. So I guess what I wanted to start off with was, you know, this whole car wash issue. It seems like there's issues that are coming up every now and then where I don't even know that it's going on, or I think some other council members might not even know. You know, when I get this email with this car wash, I don't even know about the project. But then when I inquire about it, I learn that it's something that was approved way long ago. I have no idea what's going on with it. Is there any way we can get like a list of all pending and outstanding items in the city so that
Yeah,
you know?
that's in your 10-year plan, and the car wash was in the 10-year plan. The 10-year capital plan lists all the projects proposed, larger projects proposed, and that has been in there for several years.
Got it. So how do we know when something's all of a sudden just gonna be,
This was awarded in November as part
Okay.
of the concrete slab piece of the work was awarded with a miscellaneous projects package. I believe Matt had it in the bid packet, but you know, I guess it's hard to know what you don't know, I guess. So we knew
So-
it was in there. You know, it was part of the
so what I'm
project.
hearing is it's buried in the CIP somewhere, and I need
Well,
to
not
go.
buried. I mean, the CIP is a document we bring to you every year. You see it every year. We
Right.
make tweaks to it every year, so it's not hidden. It's done. As
No,
a
I'm
part
not trying to say it's
Yeah.
hidden. I'm just saying that's the only way that I'm going to know about these projects that might have been approved before I was even here. is
Well, so
by-
we give you the 10-year, and then in the budget, we list all the projects for that particular year. So you have that in the budget also, the projects
Okay.
that are listed. So, I mean, I don't know,
That's budgeted for next year, the car wash, for 18-19.
yeah, but we slid it up, we slid the slab up early because we were doing the work in the parking lot, as I said. So, yeah, I mean, we try to give you as much information as we can. I mean, we're not trying to hide any projects from anybody.
Okay.
So.
No, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to look for an easier way that we know that's coming up and might recognize it might be an issue, or if it's something that's no longer even desired by the council, or.
Well, that's what when every year, when the 10-year plan comes up, if there's projects you want us to take off, we're more than willing to do that. I mean, that's our guide. You guys give us direction, that's our 10-year plan, that's what we're moving down the road with.
Got it.
So,
I guess I don't even remember even seeing the car wash in there, but it's probably so small that.
well, no, it was,
Okay, and then the second was I was really liking that idea that David Goldstein came up here with the estimating program for project feasibility, and that kind of touched me on another area where I'm getting we've been getting some complaints in here over another project going on about some surprise costs and things like that. So is there any way we could do something like what Dave was talking about?
we actually do that. You can't come up with final numbers, particularly the one project you're talking about. It's sometimes the environmental document lists the mitigation. We can't tell you what that's going to cost, what your mitigation for your project's going to be. We can tell you the connection fees, we give those out. We can tell you what the cost the fire department charges per square foot. We can tell you that. I mean, a sketch, as he said, it's hard to give an estimate on a
Yeah.
sketch, right? I mean,
No.
so you need some final numbers to get final numbers. So,
Okay.
but we do make that attempt. Lisa used to do it when she was in the planning department to list everything we potentially think of that's going to affect your project. We can't always put a fixed number to it, though. And until we know more about the project and it's a final described project, it's just an estimate. But we do attempt to do that.
Got it. Is there anywhere online where that stuff is accessible, where it basically lists out
All
these
of our
are your water
fees, yeah,
connection
we have a
fee,
fee
this is your-
schedule. All of our fees are listed on our website. There's
Okay.
a document that lists
I
every
guess I'll-
fee within the city.
I'll poke at that more.
Yeah.
All right. And I think that's it for now. And yep, that's it. So thank you.
Number of comments. First of all, thank you all for your public comment. Kind of controversial topics, but very well put, and a lot to think about. And actually, items that I have come across recently, especially you, sir, when you spoke about fees when it comes to building and planning. Now, I'm going to go ahead and reiterate or complete what Ryan had just spoken about, that I did have a conversation with a developer who is trying to develop the Mission View apartment, and the plan is at 1783 to 1793 Mission Drive. And I would like to bring that back onto our agenda for discussion regarding how we put out fees to our potential business developers. So I would like to get that on our agenda to talk about. Specifically related to estimates of fees. Often it is difficult for banks to give loans to individuals if they have just an estimate. And then if there are fees that might come up, such as sewer line costs that are estimated, as we all know, you could probably run into a lot more money than what you think you might. So I think we could define that a little more. I think we could nail that down to be more specific as to how much it might actually cost for a particular project. Second, when it comes to items on our 10-year plan, I know that they're in there and I know that they're in the budget, but I don't like to be surprised by items that we may suddenly decide to do that have been out there that we haven't done. So if a list could be presented to us, I don't know, a year in advance, specifically outlining what we're seriously looking at doing, so we don't come up with a situation such as the car wash, which I know we can't act on any of this right now, but we went from a slab to a car wash. And had we known a little more information about that we were actually intending to follow through with it sooner than later, that could have been very helpful to some of us that were caught by surprise. So those are my comments for today.
Yeah, and it's always been a slab and a drain. It's never been a car wash. So I just want that clear. We're not building a car wash. We're building a slab with a drain and then a hose to wash the vehicles at that location. So just want to get that straight.
Large vehicles.
We'll let Matt explain.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor Richardson and council members. I do apologize if I knew that this was going to be this kind of an issue, I would have made a greater effort to make you aware of that in the staff report to award the contract. We're talking about an item that's under $30,000. We are talking about a drain to the sewer in the middle of a concrete slab. So, as you're aware, we have a stormwater management program, and we have very serious stormwater regulations in the state now that we have to adhere to. So the fire department washes their trucks right there, 10 feet over from where we're proposing this slab. They already do that, and the oils and grease go out to the street, and we've been trying to work with them to prevent that from going into the storm drain system. So part of the concept of this project was to mitigate kind of a bad situation by putting in a drain to the sewer, so it'll capture all the grease and oils and soap, from the car wash, and take it to the sewer where it can get treated. So that's really kind of the inception of the project. So basically, it's a concrete slab. There's asphalt slab there now, and we were going to make it concrete so the water wouldn't damage the asphalt. Put a drain there, drain it to the sewer. So I guess we're going to be bringing this item back to you, but I do apologize. If we thought it was going to be this big of an issue, we would have made an effort to make you fully aware of that. So I do apologize for that. But I just want to make it clear, it's just concreting an existing patch of asphalt and putting a drain to the sewer. So I can tell you it's highly unlikely we'll get the fire department to drive their trucks and generate more greenhouse gas emissions, wasting time and money and so forth to take the fire trucks somewhere to wash them. So we were trying to kind of kill two birds with one stone, address that situation, and provide the city a convenient location to wash city vehicles. So save the city some money in the long run. I do understand the sensitivity next to the home and everything, but so you'll be able to make your decision when we bring it back. So I do apologize for not making you more aware of it. So
Thank you. The term car wash leaves a big old concept in your brain, It can be anything from a massive bunch of guys washing cars in a line, or the thing moving back and forth, or a big wand all over. So we ought to term it something different than car wash. If it's going to be a light hose, it's going to be like you would have in your front yard when you wash your car. That's what it's turning out to be, a hose, a bib, and a place to drain. It's not going to be any magnet. That's according to what I'm understanding. So we're going to bring it back on an agenda item, and we'll discuss it more completely. Thank you. Thank you. You bet. Neil?
I think everything's been covered pretty much. I saw ditto what everybody said on all accounts. I do have one question though, and I've asked it before, but I can't remember at all. The Bartle Wells thing, the remaining $6,000. What was the actual call on that?
Negotiated that down, I believe, I think we split the difference, so 3,000.
Three and three.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to verify that. I wasn't remembering if we got rid of it or whatever. So did we pay that already, or that's all done?
Yeah, that's all been completed.
Okay. All right, that's all.
I just have one more comment. I just wanted to make sure that we are going to be able to bring back the Mission View apartment development plans for discussion on the agenda.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there's a consensus
Sure,
that
yeah.
you want to bring that back.
I guess I have a different take on it. It's going through the process right now. It does not have a final plan. They're still working on it. There's no way that we know exactly what the costs are going to be to them. I would rather see it go through the process, go to the Planning Commission, have the Planning Commission give their input, and at that point in time, when we have something final, it's not a final plan. We don't know what they're going to do there.
Well, that's where the problem lies is, I mean, I know this isn't something that we're supposed to be openly discussing at this point, but.
True, but it's been brought up.
So, okay, so,
Well, my nod is yes.
yes.
I would like to bring it up.
Well, you know, there's more to this process than what appears on the surface. There's a regular process for applicants to build buildings in the city, and one of which is an EIR in some cases. And an EIR is going to be able to tell us what requirements that project has and the conditions that will be put on that project by the Planning Commission. And we're so early in the process, we cannot say one way or another what the outcome of the project is going to be until they get their facts together. Yes, this particular project's been told that they may have to do some added work on the sewer, but that's only one portion of their project. So I'd be in favor of let them continue on with the process and come back to us on an appeal if they're not satisfied with the process as it occurs.
Well, I'm trying to avoid an appeal because the business developer feels as though they have been hit by surprise with fees that they were not aware of. And so that's why I would like to get more information on this. I would like to see the communications between the city and the developer. I saw one set of communications, and I would like to see the communications from the developer to the city, just to get a timeline of when this particular development project was informed of what they actually may have to be paying in order to make a decision. I mean, this is a large project, and it's a very important project, and, you know, in good faith and transparency, I would hope that the city did not leave anything out in error, and that they were very upfront and disclosed certain extra fees that this particular developer says that they were not informed of until after they closed escrow on their property. And that's where I become concerned. So I just want to get more information.
Can I have an opinion if we want to bring that back as an agenda item?
I would like to bring it back as an agenda item.
I'm fine with it. We can bring it back. Sure.
Then I guess we'll bring it back as an agenda item.
So the agenda item will be
To
review what's happened on the project, I guess, is that? Because we will not have final mitigations until the environmental document is complete. And no, I can tell you, the attorney's going to tell you, we're not going to lay out what their mitigations are going to be until that document's done. So we can bring it back to you and tell you what the process has been so far, but we as staff cannot tell them what the final mitigation's going to be.
I would like to see when the developer was informed that they may have to do some extensive
Yeah, we can
reconstruction
we have the email
of
train on
sewer
that.
lines as compared to when they closed escrow and told you all, and when you all had asked them to let them know when they were going to close escrow. So because, quite frankly, I don't know, I can't speak for the developer, but they may not have done this project if they had known that they had to pay these fees. But that's the information that I have right now. And so I'm at the point right now where I'd like to get all of the information from the city also. I'd appreciate that.
Can you do that offline? Can you do that with Brad providing with that information rather than having an agenda item?
I'd still like it to
No,
be an
I
agenda
don't-
item.
I don't think that's a good idea. If she's going to have the information, then we all should have the information.
Okay.
I just think that it should.
We've already been provided a summary. The question is just whether to bring this up right now. I'm not sure if we really should be debating it tonight.
Yeah, I think the debate is, do you want?
Do we have the
bring it back?
rods
It
or
sounds like
not?
you got a
Okay, so be
majority to
it.
bring it back.
Yeah.
On a future agenda item.
Bring it back.
Well,
Okay.
I would put a time limit on it. I think it should come back at the next meeting.
Right.
If we're going to deal with this, we need to deal with it now, because there's two sides to the story. And one side is,
You've
Yeah.
got
We'll
your
bring
motion
it back
order.
to the next meeting.
Okay, all right.
I'm just asking for two sides of the story.
Okay. Time for my comments. I want to thank the Visitors Bureau and the Chamber of Commerce for the wonderful Christmas season we've had. Eulafest this year was fantastic, and culminating with the Christmas tree burn, which was really something that has to be seen to and to be enjoyed. I was there and saw the community come together to enjoy the Christmas tree burn, and what was really inspiring to me was to see the children running around, playing and having a good time and creating memories that are going to live with them all the rest of their lives. And as Brad recognized, that this was the 30th edition of the tree burn, and it was a successful one, and we hope for many more. And that's the end of my comments. Correspondence, we have got no correspondence. And on to the consent agenda. Is anyone who wishes to pull any of the consent agenda items?
I think we have to pull an F, because that has to be a roll call vote, unless we're going to do a roll call vote for everything. It's a resolution.
Well, I usually give a roll call vote for the consent calendar.
Okay?
Anything, I want to pull G myself. Anyone else? Okay, can I have a motion accepting items A through E?
I'll make the motion to accept items A through E.
Was there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Toussaint,
Yes.
Waite,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes?
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes. That was passed 5-0. Item F. Ms. Jameson. You wanted to pull that?
Oh, no, you said they were going to do a
Okay, well,
roll call anyway.
Then adjust that motion to read through F. The reason I wanted to pull G is I wanted to thank the Chamber and Councilman Toussaint for the effort they're going through to try to receive FEMA money that may be available to our merchants. They've put a lot of effort. The letter is in the packet on what they did, and they've contacted most, if not all, the merchants in the city to indicate that there's a chance for them to recover losses because of the Thomas fire. And I think that they should both be commended for the effort they put forth. Would you have any comment? You're on the, you have a speaker slip here, would you like to speak? Yeah. Come on up, Tracy.
I want to thank Ryan Toussaint very much for helping us with this letter. We have worked with Santa Barbara County management. We've worked with the Small Business Administration and Salud Carvajal's office and Monique Lamone's to make sure we have all of our documentation in order to have a declaration, which we have received from the state level for the Thomas fire. And we have put out a survey to all of our business owners, chamber member, non-chamber, that we would like them to check their retail sales from the time the fire started up until going into probably, I'm going to say, March, of where does this affect us possibly. the cost of the cleanup, cancellations of rooms, the discounted rate, economic loss on the power outage for December 13th. We're trying to make sure that, and I think it's really our retail that has been affected most of all that I've talked to, from 15 to 50%, our retail has been affected here on the surveys that we've received back. So we do want to continue that and try to work with you guys on, that would be item F then, to get something so we can have some funding and for people to work with their banks, to work with their insurance companies, because we think this is going to be a loss to us over the season, and we were in our biggest season.
I have a question of that. What about the parents that ended up having to pay for childcare because schools were closed? Is there any, can they do anything? Can they get anything?
Well, we're working on that. I think some of that we're going to try to work on through some other agencies, and I will check in that with Monique Lamone's office and I will have an answer back to you from that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Ryan, we have anything to say on that?
No real comments. It's just it's kind of interesting studying all this because you notice that some businesses could even have a net from this, such as a hotel that, they might lose some of their prime customers, but then they might be booked out all through the week. So it'll be interesting to see when all that data comes in. But so some people, they say, well, hey, I haven't felt anything, and then you got others that say they have felt things. So I think it's just important to recognize that different types of businesses can be affected differently by the situation. So,
thank you for that.
Do you have something else?
Did you have something else, Tracy?
Yeah. I think that we need to realize this isn't just our retail customers, this is our pest control customers, water, things of that nature, and that affects, that have businesses here in Solvang, and that live in Solvang, but are affected throughout Santa Barbara County as they were trying to deliver goods and services too. So I think we just want to make sure this isn't just retail, this was to get it in for all businesses.
Thank you. Can I have if there's no other discussion, can I have a motion for item G? It's 4G.
I so move.
There's a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Pass 5-0. On to the regular agenda, item 5.
Item 5, appointment of Mayor Pro Tem.
Staff report.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, annually you select a mayor pro tem for the year. Normally it's done in December. As acting city clerk, I forgot to put that on in December, so we're doing it in January this year.
The assistant city clerk,
Yeah,
I think
assistant
was
city clerk, yeah. The first criteria is that it's the member who has served 1 year and not previously served, which we do not have anyone under that criteria. And the second would be if no council member has served, then they would be the first to be offered that. So as you can see from the staff report, the last 4 years, in 14, Councilmember Jameson was Mayor Pro Tem, in 15, Councilmember Zimmerman, in 16, Councilmember Deuce, and then in 2017, Councilmember Toussaint was the Mayor Pro Tem. So if you follow the criteria, going through the different, options for it, then Councilmember Waite would be determined to be the next eligible Mayor Pro Tem. So that concludes my staff report. We're waiting for you to choose one.
Any questions of staff report? See, no. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to comment on this particular item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Is there a discussion? I'd like to say that I think your staff report is not absolutely correct in that the first criteria shall be served at least 1 year, and that's a filter. And God bless her, Miss Waite hasn't served a year yet. So under those conditions, I would suggest that the 4 remaining council members, if they all chose not to serve, then we could roll it over to Miss Waite. Then in that case, I'm going to nominate.
I have a question on this. What overrides what, or what surpasses?
Well,
like, how's this thing like really? 'Cause to me, it just sounds like we can do whatever we want. So if that's the case, why don't we just appoint somebody? It goes about it every which way possible. So it could be this year, that year. They could be, everything's covered. It's all contradicted to me. It's how I'm reading it, and there's no real order or a clearly defined order in which the seat is taken.
Geez, you're reading it differently than I am.
I might be.
I was.
This looks different than when I was elected.
I was just
as well.
trying to
I thought it
compare
was-
back to 2016 when I got it,
Yeah,
and,
right.
and even that agenda packet, it's written differently in there than what it is today. So I don't know. This one's talking about the city charter. The past one's saying there is no city charter for it, and then so I start getting a headache trying to make sense of anything that's going on here. And then what's written today is completely inconclusive. So you know, it's not a big deal for me, but I just think there's some wording here that might need to be, you know, even in the policy for the mayor, it starts talking about elected at large. It's almost like the policy was pulled from some city that might have district elections or something.
No, it was pulled because we now have an elected mayor. We have an elected mayor.
Okay,
We
but
didn't
it seemed like
Yeah.
like it got pulled from a place that has an elected mayor, but also might have districts or something like that. Because it's trying to specify at large, or I just didn't know why that's. Maybe that's
The
just
whole
wording,
council is
but-
It's
elected at
elected, it's
large.
at large, yeah.
Whole council is.
I get that, but if you're in if it was districts, like maybe, I don't know, maybe Santa Barbara works this way, then your mayor might be elected at large, but then the rest of the council
That's
could be
right.
elected based
But
on.
this is Solvang, and the whole council is elected.
I know, so why that wording's even there is all I'm just saying.
Oh,
I'm
I
just
see.
saying, it looks like things have just been pulled from different places and put there.
It's in there historically, what can
Yeah.
we say? you know?
And it looks like we have to change our seating too.
No, we don't have to.
Oh, you don't have to?
No.
Okay, so you
That-
kind of just selectively do things.
Anyhow, I want to nominate Ms. Jameson as Mayor Pro Tem, based on the fact that Ms. Waite hasn't served a year on council. Can I have a second?
What does Ms. Waite think?
In all fairness, I believe that the mayor pro tem should be the next experienced council person on the council. So although that would be a position I would like, and I am sure that I could fulfill the position, if we are going to stick with the protocol that the individual has to have served at least a year, it cannot be me. So I would second for Joan Jameson.
Thank you for that. Can we have a roll call vote, or we can, let's just ask for an approval. Can I have a voice vote, please?
Voice vote.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Pass 5-0. Ms. Jameson is now the Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Karen.
On to item 6.
Item 6, review of City of Solvang grant funding policy.
Staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, Sandra Featherston, your Administrative Services Director. Council had asked that we come back and talk a little bit about the grant funding policy in an effort to evaluate whether or not you want to make any changes for the next funding year. So I thought I'd run through briefly, as it's outlined in the staff report, sort of the process. So in February of each year, I send out a notice to previous recipients and applicants for the grant funding. And then they have until about mid-March in which to complete their application. Those applications come back to myself and I coordinate them, put them usually in a book, and make sure they've met all the requirements as per the current policy. And then the Finance Subcommittee reviews those and makes a preliminary funding award. Then those are brought to the preliminary budget hearing in June, and the different agencies are given an opportunity to come and speak before the council for their request, and then the council at that time deliberates and makes the final kind of funding decisions. Sometimes there are changes between the prelim budget hearing and the final budget hearing, as we saw last year. One thought about doing that is I know the number of agencies continues to grow who are requesting funding, about how to maybe manage that going forward. So I've outlined a couple options in the staff report. You could do, and I've looked at other cities as well to kind of get some ideas, but you could do it as a percentage of your general fund expenditures. And I mentioned, for example, 3%. So you could decide ahead of time, you know, we want to cap the total amounts we're giving to the agencies at 3%. Then there's a pot that you have to divvy up between all the agencies that request it. You could set aside a flat amount per agency. You know, that the max amount, let's say, is $25,000. and that's the max any agency is going to get. Or you could just do a flat cap of, we're going to give out $250,000 for the year, and then each agency is evaluated and given a percentage or an amount out of that particular flat amount pot. You could also come up with perhaps priority focus areas, for example, seniors, youth, or low-income families, for example. And once you have those priority areas in mind that you want to distribute funding to, then those agencies would apply based on that funding area, and you could evaluate them sort of with that criteria. Do they meet one of your priority funding approaches? And if so, then perhaps more of the award would be given to that agency. So just some food for thought. I thought it would be better to bring this back now rather than towards the end of the funding cycle for these agencies as they're looking towards building their budgets for the upcoming year, if you're going to make any changes. I did include a chart in the staff report. Shows a little bit about the funding history and the percentage of the total distributions compared to the general fund, and then the total amounts. So for example, over 10 years, the total agency funding given out in 2008-09 was $102,500, and this current fiscal year it was $415,534. So it has ramped up in addition to the number of agencies. So in terms of alternatives, you could keep the current policy in place, which basically is an open, everybody can apply, and then you do the award distribution through the finance subcommittee and then on at the preliminary and general budget hearings. Or you can decide to amend the policy and bring back any changes for future discussion or approval. So that concludes my staff report. I'm available for any questions.
Are there any questions of staff report?
Yeah, I have one. Why isn't the SCVB in this report, the Visitors Bureau?
Well, I kept them out because that is sort of a separate funding item, when you during the budget. I know they are part of that preliminary hearing, but they are not really the nonprofit kind of grant agencies that are typically, for this particular purpose. I can certainly put them back in if you like and give you a new chart. That's up to council to decide if you want to include them in the same pot with everyone who's requesting funding or not.
Well, I think it would be nice to see the real full picture on what the grant funds are. So they are a grant fund, so if there's, it would give a better idea of what's being given, and because it's really just a fraction of the total granting that we do.
Yep.
Any other comments? Thank you, Sandra. Seeing none, we go to the public now for public comment. Is there any public comment regarding this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for discussion. And who'd like to start?
I'll start. I think one of our priorities when we consider grant funding should be need. Not necessarily what that organization contributes to the community, but an organization within the community that is in need should be one of our priorities.
I was going to, are you going to keep going? Oh, can we do the, rather than need, maybe deserve?
Deserves.
I'm serious. I mean, yeah.
It's a fine line.
Very
Okay.
subjective.
Any other comments?
I have, my main concern is that we give it to the people that actually perform services here in the city of Solvang, and that they are not a part of a huge nonprofit organization.
Okay, yeah, let me clarify. I meant people that are in need within the community.
Okay.
That's, wanted to clarify that, Jen.
Okay, okay. Now, and I knew what you meant, but I'm thinking of if we give, I don't know if it was United Way or whoever it was, we gave maybe $5,000. That does not mean anything to those people. And I don't think that we should even consider those anymore. I'm looking to give benefit to the local charitable organizations that we have here, like People Helping People, like
Veggie Rescue?
some to Veggie Rescue.
The Solvang School?
Solvang School,
The
definitely.
library?
So does United Way
Well, I think-
not do anything for the community?
No, that's not what I'm saying. They don't need our funds. They are a huge,
But what if everybody said that?
are they going to say that about people helping people?
I'm
It's a
just- I'm
little,
just
it's a
saying.
drop in the bucket. Their budget is teeny weeny compared to United Way. And that's not located here in this community.
I mean,
The
the
whole-
headquarters aren't, but their organization is
Their
participating.
the whole idea of, we raised the funds from TOTs, and we did a Measure Z. And at that point in time, we raised the TOT by 2%. And we told the people that it would be used for local nonprofit organizations, also to help with sidewalks, things that were of benefit to our community, specifically to this community, not to fan out all over. And I'm almost saying not to fan out all over the valley. I'm thinking of these are these are taxes that are brought to this community, and I think they need to stay here in this community.
So if we adopted a policy, let's just say for one scenario where you put a limitation where you're only going to donate to local only nonprofit organizations, how much does that chip away from this?
And does that mean you have to have an address here in Solvang? Is that what that is?
I don't know if it's an address, Neil. No, that's.
I mean, is that what it is? You have to have an address here in Solvang? Does that mean you're here? Or what's considered here in Solvang? Or
Well, not United Way.
so just specifically United Way?
No, not just specifically United Way. We had an approach by Santa Maria PCPA, and I think we did give them some funds last year, but I don't
Yes.
think that was appropriate. We can give to Theater Fest, they're here. There's kind of a fine line there of what we spend our taxpayer dollars on, and I've been criticized for some of the funds that we've given outside of the community, and I'm just bringing that up because that's what I've heard from other citizens.
The policy A here says the organizations must provide services in Solvang for Solvang residents.
Right.
And I think and I'm guilty of it because I'm on the finance committee, of overlooking that first sentence. And I think that if we stick to that A, that will solve some of the problem that we're facing. The other problem we're facing is to be equitable in what we're contributing to various organizations. Some demand more because they provide more services. Some demand more because they think they provide more services. So it's a judgment call in each case in trying to resolve it. For several years on the finance committee, the numbers that we've recommended were changed when it comes before the council, which kind of negates the effect or the purpose of the finance committee. The finance committee is looking at those requests for contributions and making decisions on which is equitable for both the applicant and the city. And we make the recommendations that come before council, and council changes them and grants them mostly their full-blown requests. So we're all guilty in seeing these costs rise. I don't know what would be an equitable thing to do. Using the suggestion of a percentage of the total budget might be an equitable way. A flat amount per year to be allocated to all agencies, I don't know that's really hard to work. The maximum amount any agency can be awarded would be difficult to handle, I think. If we say $25,000 for across the board, I think that wouldn't be workable. So if there's any, and then coming up with priorities, that's all subjective, as to the priority of should seniors get priority over youth, or should seniors get priority over the library, those kinds of things. So if I was going to suggest or pick any of these possible scenarios, one would be to keep it as is, And the other might be to set up a specific percentage of the overall budget. Any comments?
I have one more comment. I think we need to take the library out of this scenario. I don't think it should be part of the grant as things, as Ryan and I are seeing, as things are moving along.
I agree.
That's not going to work anymore.
I agree.
Because we are fighting tooth and nail to keep our library operational. So I don't know that we can include that in, I think it should be removed like the Visitors Bureau has been removed. And maybe the chamber needs to be removed also. They need to be separate.
So then what is that considered when we're giving them money?
Giving who money?
Well,
Those,
I think
those organizations.
I think what you're essentially saying is prioritizing, because it's just kind of like the same thing, not bringing the SCVB up tonight. You're saying, well, they're essentially a priority, so we're not going to apply any of these rules to them. If you're going to do that to the library or the chamber, you're going to determine that there's some kind of priority that's, or function that's given by that organization, and so we're going to treat that one differently. And then for all the other grants, we're going to lump them all together. So like it's like prioritized categories. I think what I'm hearing.
I'd like to see it justified.
Sorry?
I'd like to see the prioritization justified.
I think that the sentence in 1B, exclude the part that says exceptions, but if you just went with grant funds will be used by the requesting organization for a specific project benefiting Solvang residents. Organizations must provide services in Solvang for Solvang residents. And I don't think that we have to hesitate to give money to organizations in need legitimately within the city of Solvang. And I don't think that organizations asking for funds outside of the city of Solvang should have precedence over that. So I'm very much on Joan's page. I like Neil's comments also about do they deserve to get the funding, but that all falls under needs. I'm going to stick with my who needs the money the most and why, and they really do need to present a good case for the funds and what they'll be using them for.
Yeah, I guess to clarify the deserves part, that is that they're taking action on their own outside of just depending on solely or a majority of it coming from the city funds. So it's like what the museum does, you know, they put on fundraisers and things like that. That's what I would say would be deserve, yeah.
Really trying.
And that's what we ask for in the application, that they show us that they go out and they try to raise funds, and they do get grants from other places. Some of them do and some of them don't. So I think that that's important. I have a question of Sandra, item G. Does that ever happen? Do they come and tell us? Item G on page 61, at the bottom of the page. Do they all come in and do that for you?
I do try to send out a reminder to do that, but they usually coordinate with Lisa. I would say most of the groups come and does some type of presentation. Now, do they all come by December? If their fiscal year was in June 30, I can't guarantee that, but usually they've all come because they get this reminder when I send out the applications in February. I remind them that they all need to make a presentation to council about how the funds were spent the prior year.
Okay.
So they do get reminded, but I can't guarantee they do it within 120 days.
Oh. Okay. One thing that may help us in all this, supposedly the library, Santa Barbara Central, is going to get their budgets to us sooner than they have in the past, so that we're not scrambling to figure out how much money we need to provide to the library. That being said, we got a notification that we actually have some reserves this year. And in the beginning of the year, we were told that we didn't have any reserves, that we'd used them all. So the library is a shell game at this point in time, as far as I'm concerned. The money is never the same. The list comes out one month and we have a certain group of numbers that we're working at, and it comes out another month, and all those numbers change. So hopefully this library study that is going on is going to help remedy that situation, because it's not good right now.
Have we decided what we're going to do?
No, Jim.
I don't think we've decided what we're going to do. Well, let's, Ryan and I are on the Finance Committee, and if I can get his agreement, that we will be more strict in what we're accepting, what we're doing, and to more carefully understand that this last year was absolutely outrageous to add another $200,000 to the grants. But if we want to specify a certain percentage of the overall general fund budget, we can do that, or we can enforce this policy A. Organizations must provide services in Solvang for Solvang residents. And can you specify that in the grant request?
You know, I do think we could rework the application to be a little bit more specific and to get a little bit more information from the agencies. So
Right,
I'd like to
yeah.
do that and maybe get it online this year so that they're required to fill in some fields. It's pretty hard to cull that information together from those big applications. But I think you know, each of the organizations makes a case for how they help Solvang residents. So I think that's a tough one to really try and limit them. Every single one of them argued that they helped Solvang residents in some way last year.
Yeah.
I think the bigger concern for me from the financial perspective is really, you know, do you figure out a way to put a cap? Because I just see the agencies growing and the need growing, and while we want to help all of them, I mean, you're now at $400 and something thousand, not including the, you know, the library and the SCVB and everybody else. So do you figure out a way to say to the agencies, you know, we want to help everybody, but here's our pot. You know, it's $300,000 this year. You might increase it by CPI every year after that. But then they know that they can't depend on coming in for 20 and getting 45,000, or, you know, and getting even more than they ask for. So, or you put a cap that says, you know, agencies can get a max of $25,000 or 50% of their request. I mean, some way to manage it and cost contain it while also telling and putting the agencies on notice for next year that, you know, we're not an open checkbook. We want to help people, but we also have to be mindful of how to manage that as well. Right now, it's just sort of an open book, and I'm just concerned, you know, with other costs, not that this is the place to cut, but do we manage them some way?
That was very helpful. Yeah, that was very helpful.
So do we have a goal of how much we're trying to chip this annual cost center down by?
Across the chart, looks like the percentage of increase over on each of the budget is going up. You know, starts at 1.6 and ends up at 4.7. Maybe we can pick a number in between someplace that will limit it to the actual amount of the budget. You know, and 2.5–3%, like Sandra suggested, might work.
So what would 3% be?
I think for 17-18, that would have been 262,000, roughly.
And we gave 429.5.
We gave 415,534. So you could go for 3.5%. That might get you a little closer.
That included the chamber.
And the library.
And the library.
Mm.
So if we take the chamber and the library out, because we may end up having to sign a contract for the library, so that's going to be.
Yeah, the library was 141,000 and the chamber was 85.
Just to kind of chime in on the SCVB, you do actually have a contract with them to be your advertising agency. So you do require them to be your agency, but you don't tell how much funds you're going to do until the budget. So it is a little bit different than a grant.
Right.
You're saying this is what you have to promote Solvang. So it is a little bit different than a grant itself. But
I mean, you can argue that, but I would say that why are we funding advertising for Solvang? To profit? Why? What do we?
yeah, because tourism is your industry. Yeah, that's where you
Okay,
get your revenue
so
from that.
that's how we operate. I see.
So, why would we not want to include the Chamber
Right,
of
yeah.
Commerce in this.
No, I think the chamber is just as valuable as SCVB.
Yeah,
It-
we don't have a contract with
Right,
them.
but
and
we just don't have a
with
contract
the
with them,
library.
so.
We may eventually.
Right.
But I think it's a little different when you have a contract with an agency.
Sure.
Yeah.
You have to provide some level of funding, and they're not necessarily in a
obligated if you
competitive
had the
piece,
contract,
right?
so,
So,
yeah, so-
you may want to enter into a contract with the chamber also, to be your business advocate. I mean, that would be an option. But, yeah, I think the library contract is coming, most likely. That's what we're told by the city of Santa Barbara, so.
So then we cut it in 50% if we take those two agencies out of this grant funding. Is that what we're getting at?
Say that again?
If we remove them, we've already fixed the problem?
Well,
You're talking about the library and.
Library and the chamber, that's what,
Oh,
two
yeah.
something?
Yeah, you'd be out at about 300,000, it looks like, right around there, if you took those two agencies out from the current, from last year.
Okay, well, I can't agree to take the chamber out of it because we don't have a contract with the chamber.
All right, let's draw it up.
Do you, can we get a consensus then of how that Ryan and I might get the first
well,
go around by it? you know?
it sounds like what I'm hearing here is that there's things that have been that are being prioritized again. You know, so the second when it's the chamber pulling that one out of the grants, you know, it's again to separate it from just applying a blanket policy across the board. So if we don't want to do that, or if that's what I keep hearing, then I guess what I'm hearing is that we need some kind of categories that are prioritized. So if you have the SCVB, which would be like our cost of goods sold for our tourism, you know, you spend this money on advertising and you get this margin back in on the TOT tax, you're going to have the same argument for the chamber. You know, you're going to spend this money and you're trying to drive the local economy here. So maybe this council has a priority to focus some kind of marketing money or monies down towards economic development, which would you could put the SCVB and the chamber both underneath that little umbrella there. When you get it down to, you know, the library, okay, that's its own deal, and it's kind of a service the city needs to be providing for the people that live here. So maybe again that's why I'm hearing that one needs to be pulled out. Again, that's just categories that I feel like are trying to be prioritized right now. So maybe that's just what we need to do, and then with the rest of it, figure out how we're going to just handle the
Human nature.
the grants after that. Maybe we have a priority towards certain organizations here that we find critical to what makes Solvang, you know. So you might be able to sit there after separating these things and just kind of prioritize those grants there as the general recommendation. But if something like that was done, then being on the, you know, if we're on the finance committee, we would generally know how we could prioritize things and work on trying to fix the issue of I guess the other issue is that we're now seeing that the grants are rising too quickly. So then we just focus on how we're going to chip those down without blanketing everyone.
Just cap it at a certain percent.
Right.
Yeah.
And my only thing with a percentage, if it were to be grants, if you were to prioritize those, and then the percentage, we might want to consider basing the percentage on revenue versus expenses. Because what I don't like about based on expenses is you have a really expensive year. What do? Spend more. That doesn't. I'd rather see that we have a really good year, we can give more. We have a bad year, we can give less. I think that correlates a little better with the checkbook.
Logical. That's
Yeah.
logical. Yeah.
You may want to also consider capping new entries, new applicants. I mean, that seems to have been they've probably tripled in the amount of applicants we've had in the last few years. So
Yes.
you may want to think about no new, kind of close the door on that as part of it, and then pick a
Part of the-
dollar value.
part of the
That may be
screening,
enough
yeah.
information for the budget subcommittee to at least start working
Yeah.
on the budget. So.
Other than that, Sandra, do you have an idea on just if we were to just limit this down to grants going to local organizations only, how much that would even chip out of here?
Well, that's a hard one again, because like I said, they all argue that they're helping organizations and locally. I mean, even United Way, you know, they are funding a summer program for Solvang residents to attend, even though it's not held within the city of Solvang, it's held over in San Ynez. So they're going to argue that they are benefiting citizens of Solvang. So that's a tough criteria. I think rather, again, this all comes up during the budget hearing, is everybody making their case for why they need their funds. I'll try and come up with some very objective criteria for the application, you know, that we've had, and maybe we can modify it a little bit better. But I think perhaps setting the goal of, like, you know, and telling the agencies we're going to give out 3% of revenues from the prior year, and that's what we're going to base our number on. And so letting them know that they're going to have to really make a strong case, right, to convince everyone that they are the most needy of the group. So.
And again, do we have, is there any kind of consensus on how much we're trying to chip away here? Because that's what's making this a real hard balloon to pop here. You know, the other thing that you have to realize is that most of the expense is going to be, you got the SCVB, you got the library, and you got the chamber. That's the bulk of things here. So if you're trying to lop off $200,000 and you're going to try to lop it from only these grants that are here, it's not going to happen. You basically say no grants.
Well, and I'm not trying to come up with necessarily a ballpark amount to cut. What I'm saying is that, can we come up with a criteria so that going forward, you know, this doesn't, you don't have 100 agencies that all got wind that, you know, there's no limit.
Solvang's,
and you're,
yeah.
Right, but also,
the cash guy.
yeah, I mean, I think every agency is probably in need of funding, and I'm not saying they're not. I'm just thinking, can we come up with a criteria where we say, you know, let's start at 3.5% and see if there's a, you know, doesn't mean you can't go over, but we did find that. Like, we've had agencies who requested amount, and then they got more than that at the preliminary budget hearing. So that also, you know, it's all just trying to manage costs overall, you know, and looking at the SCVB and the library, that's all going to be part of the general budget discussion anyway. You know, is how do you fund that and going forward each year. This is just one small component that I'm thinking, you know, do we try and figure out a method now before, you know, you have 30, 40, 50 agencies all trying to get funding.
Right. So again, I guess what I'm feeling is I feel like some kind of prioritization is what I'm hearing, and then by categories, and then just coming up with some kind of a policy with the grants, either capping them, and then if there's any that, you know, technically are not local, then that's fine. But it looks to me like it might be a very negligible amount, because I've only heard one so far, or 5,000. So.
Yeah, as Sandra said, the Zaka Center implied that I think half of their parents are coming from Solvang. So it depends on if your criteria is in Solvang or for Solvang residents. There's a big difference in that. No, I'm not. I'm just saying that was the justification of that.
Right.
It was for Solvang residents as opposed to doing work in Solvang. So.
Well, I guess my concern about that specific one was we have other preschools too, and one of them happens to be here in the city, and they've never come to us and asked us for any funds.
That could change this year when word gets out.
I know. Well,
you know, I've got
then
people
they'll be
calling
arguing
me
that
now
we're giving
saying,
to a preschool, you know, next door and not to the.
yeah, but I do have people calling me now that are asking more about the grant funding. They know that the city's giving out money and there's no, you know, so I think we're going to see even more people this coming year.
Because the county's not doing it again this year. They
That I
didn't do
don't
anything
know.
last year.
On your application request, specify no tax returns. We've gotten tax returns which doesn't do us a bit of good, that we want P&Ls and we want budgets and we want justifications.
And we want to know that they're legitimate.
I'm sorry?
We want to know that they're a legitimate
Exactly.
operation.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping again to maybe make the application electronic this year so we can require that certain fields are filled out and we can only accept uploads maybe of certain documents. So we'll put
So
on
are you
there.
saying you want the P&Ls or you don't want them?
We do,
We do want the P&Ls and want the balance.
but we don't need a
Not
tax
tax
return, for
returns.
example.
But we don't want the tax returns.
Got it.
I just want to make a comment here about this whole process we're going through. When I first came on this council, we would get slips of paper with an amount on it from an organization, and that's all we ever got. We never got any P&Ls. We didn't get any information about the organization at all. It was all on trust.
And a $100 bill under that paper, right?
Pardon me?
And a $100 bill under that paper.
Yeah, exactly, with somebody's name on it. So we have come a long, long way. And I think it's good, and I think it's good that we formalized the application process, because we were headed, we think we're giving too much away now. I think we would have been a much more difficult problem than we have now.
I have a speaker slip, Tracy Beard.
Just on behalf of this, I want to say we are very fortunate. We were very blessed to receive a grant from you this year, and we did push out for economic growth, economic development, and for tax leakage was our grant for. I do believe that, you know, if we were to redo the grant process, I do believe we could work with you within a city contract. That was something I had talked to another city councilman before they left, and we went this process. But I do think that we have an argument for both as we look at funding for going into 2017 or 2018-19 for the next year's funding. But I do want to say I do think unfairly no one else is here, and I just happen to be here tonight. So I do believe that there is opportunity to work within your guys' program, but I do believe that we have done a very good job on what we have done with our money this year, and we've come many times to tell you what we've done with our funding.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
So if I understand this correctly, we are in an agreement with putting a cap on the amount of money that's going to go to grant funding, and then within that, our subcommittee can determine the priority as to which organizations receive funds within that. Great.
And we have we decided on a cap, a specific cap, or are we just going to?
Well, I think if we, as long as we had, like, I've written down a few things. So we have some kind of category prioritization, local only nonprofit orgs, and a percentage of prior year's revenues in consideration with the cap. So if it was like for example, 3%, then you're gonna base that on prior years. The only thing I might add to that would just be in consideration of the current year's data or forecast. So you're not handing out money when you know that that if something's going down, or things like that.
Right, so that's why you put a cap on it.
No, I meant like if you had if you're basing on, if you're gonna put a cap on that's a percentage of the prior year's revenue, then the only thing about it is you might consider when the grants are being handed out, what you're divvying out if for some reason you already know that year's off to a poor start.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a final number for the year before the year you're about to budget.
Right.
So, yeah,
but we have an idea of
what that's
if we're
be.
2 quarters in and we were like, oh wow, things are really down, we got a problem, then do you want to be doling out all this money? So those are just some things I've heard, so that we could take those kinds of elements there and build up a recommendation for council review.
This cap, are you suggesting that it's for the entire nonprofits, including library, SCVB?
So that would be like if you had the category prioritization, then you're going to separate. For example, we could determine to separate the chamber and the library and the SCVB. So they're all.
My question is the overall contribution. Will it be at 3% of the revenues, previous year's revenues, or are we going to exclude certain categories from that?
Right. So you would be excluding those. You're saying that if you're gonna call the SCVB and the chamber your business development and advertising.
That would be a different budgeting process if we contract.
That's what I'm saying. So you're telling me they're separate. So I'm saying you're pulling those away, and then only dealing in the library as well. And then the cap or stipulations that we put on would only be those remaining that are in that grant list.
Right.
I think is what I'm hearing here.
Okay. Shall we start discussing a contract with the chamber?
I'd be open to that.
Do we need to get involved in that? Would you do it?
Does that need to be a separate?
We can do some research
on that and
find
find out
what it's going to look
see,
like. But yeah.
See, you know, what other cities are doing and what
Yeah,
what we might
I think
be doing.
what we're hearing is you like them considered similarly to the SCBB.
To the SCBB,
Right.
that's correct, yeah.
I think it was that.
That way, if we develop policies, they can both be basically generally, around the SVB and the chamber together, like our marketing arm or something like that, and we're not sitting here.
Yeah, we'll do a little research on chamber contracts.
Okay. So have we completed discussion?
Okay, so just so I understand, so do you want me to bring back a revised policy and a revised application with a 3% cap in place for all local nonprofit agencies, excluding the SCVB, the library, and the chamber?
You said it right.
Okay.
Perfect.
And is it no new, or you want to continue to leave it open?
Leave it open, I would say, because we can reject if we think that the application is not appropriate. We can reject.
And we'll only have a certain amount of money to give, and
Right.
we'll be able to prioritize, so.
Okay, do you want me to bring it back, or are we done? Like, I can take care of
Done.
this? We're done?
Done.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll feed that.
Show us the app, right.
So you have your job.
Okay, on to item 7.
Item 7, city council policies.
Staff report?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, at your October 3rd meeting, Councilmember Jameson requested a future item to discuss city council policies. The city of Solvang has a policy manual that includes 71 different policies regarding a multitude of issues. I did attach the table of contents so you're familiar with those. What this report focuses on is just those that are under the city council heading. You did adjust the protocol a couple of meetings ago. This is an old staff report, it wasn't last meeting, but on the replacement of a vacancy. There may be some may change. You might want to change the pro tem language, I understand, after tonight. But so what you've got is I just did a little summary of each of those policies. I mean, staff's really just looking for you to discuss and provide any direction. I'll go through the staff report on that awarding proclamations policy. We award a lot of different proclamations, and this policy was established for eligible recipients and the procedure with specific timelines. There has not been any staff hasn't recognized any issues since that was last addressed in 2013. And so there would be no recommended changes, but we're willing to address those if there are. And then city council reimbursable expense policy. This is tied to the California Government Code, which requires the city to have an adopted written policy to reimburse its members. Our current policy does meet that state code. We've not had any changes to this since 2010, and because of that, the per diem rate for meals is set at $45, which is an 8, 12, 25 split. The current per diem for federal travel is $64. So staff would recommend that you may want to bring those into line with the current federal rates and make that form that we use a little more user-friendly.
What about travel?
Travel, we do mileage, as we already do IRS rate for mileage. Yeah, and then we do hotel actual cost for the rooms. So
How often do the federal rates get updated?
they adjust them every year. There's usually not a whole lot of jump to them, but yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you could tie your rate to the federal rate and not set numbers, and then we could just
that's what I
as
was
they
thinking,
move, we
yeah.
could change that. Yeah, we do. Like I said, we do that with mileage currently. Okay, then Code of Ethics is another policy that's listed under the City Council heading. And in 2002, this was adopted for all its members and all members of the city boards and commissions. This is intended to assure public confidence in the integrity of local government. This policy includes a section indicating that it should be reviewed annually by councils, boards, and commissions. I would have to admit, we've not done that annually. We've done that every so often, but I wouldn't say on an annual basis. We reviewed that. I think we have tried to get signed copies of that people have reviewed it from all the boards and commission members, and the city clerk does keep that in her file. The other is electronic devices. This was written in 2013 when iPads were issued to several city council members. It is written primarily denoting tablets as the electronic device, which is no longer the case. 3 of you have laptop PCs and 2 have iPads. You may, it is recommended you may want to change that to include both types of electronic devices.
You want to add cell phones?
And we could add cell phones to that if the council directs. Yeah, that's kind of an evolving issue. We now have 2 council members with city cell phones. So, and then lastly, the fund balance policy, reserve policy is another one that's under the city council. This has been addressed several times by the council, most recently in 2013 in conjunction with changes in the designation for fund balance categories by the GASB. And this policy includes a requirement of a 4/5 vote for city council for use of the fund balance. So those are the kind of quick summaries of the policies that are out there under the city council heading. We're looking for your discussion and potential action that you may want us to bring back revised policies with. And that concludes my staff report.
Any questions to staff report? I have one on regarding the expense policy. Some of these organizations that I've traveled with accept the federal requirement for meals without a receipt. Otherwise they pay the $15 for breakfast if there's a breakfast, or the $16 for lunch if there's a lunch. So my question is, are we requiring receipts for each of those meals up to that amount?
Yeah, we have not. I think if someone's requesting more than that, we would then request a receipt for that. I think is how we've been doing that. Is that correct, Sandra?
The city, it depends. So if it's a council member going on a trip, for example, they typically fill in the amount and they get the per diem for the day, and we don't get receipts back from what I can see.
It's a per diem amount.
It's a per diem amount, right.
And that's for example, there are some of these conventions, for lack of a better word, that we go to that some meals are furnished. For example, a lunch.
And the policy does say those will be deducted, and when we review, we do deduct. If there's a meal provided, like a lunch, we do deduct those.
Lunch or dinner on it, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. So there are no receipts for per diem?
No.
No.
Okay. And then on the code of ethics, isn't that AB 1234?
AB 1234 requires ethics training. The code of ethics is something that would be internally adopted. AB 1234 doesn't require you to have a specific code of ethics, but it does have the training obligation.
Well, I thought that was, that they provided the training under 1234, or the, I guess, League of California Cities.
The League of California Cities is a certified trainer, the Institute for Local Government. There are a number of other ones that do it, and there are model code of ethics, codes of ethics that have been produced, I believe, by ILG. So they're out there, but the obligation under AB 1234 is a training obligation.
Training, and that's a biannual, annual training, and the city clerk keeps us all abreast of those sorts of things. Thank you. Any other questions to staff? With that, we'll go to the public. Is there any public comment regarding this issue? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. And that action is to review the policies and provide staff any possible changes. Is there any possible changes?
I think we made some.
I'm sorry?
I think we made some. We asked for some changes.
Which are?
Well, I didn't make note of all of them.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to change the reimbursements.
Right.
We're going to add cell phone. We're going to do something different with electronic devices. I don't know what, but.
Yeah, that would just be bringing that current to all the potential devices. Like I said, when we did that, it was just purely because iPads have been given to a couple of new council members. So we can change that to more current standards if you'd like.
Anything else? We don't need a motion. You've got your direction for.
I had a couple things. One was I was just kind of wondering if there's a way to kind of clean up the reimbursement policy at all. I mean, part of it is, you know, the form you fill out is kind of a pain, and then also, you know, I was doing the League of California Cities stuff, and then the JPIA, and this. I mean, it turns into like days of time that go into this, and then you come back from it and you're trying to remember, you know, what even happened while you're there. Is there any way we can just do like a daily per diem while on travel? So if you're 3 days, then there's just like, you know, $100 per day or something like that, and that's what you get to.
So that's what was indicated before, but we do deduct out if there's meals provided. That's the policy.
Well,
you can get rid of that if you'd like and just issue per
right,
diem.
but you're still doing like per diem per breakfast, and we have to go through and you know.
Right.
I think that's if we're provided a meal at a sponsored convention, I think that we shouldn't charge the city for that same meal.
I'm not trying to argue that.
No, okay. Well, I mean, so
Yeah.
he's right about subtracting out the meal. You know, if on any, like on Tuesday, you have breakfast that you pay for, but they
Right.
provide lunch and dinner, then you just show breakfast. And then on Wednesday, maybe all three, and on Thursday, whatever. But it's I don't know. I've filled out a lot of these corporate travel forms. This is an easy one. So
maybe I'm just a complainer because I've never had to fill one out before. But
maybe that could
be. Well, you know, and honestly, we can pre-fill out a lot of it for you because like a league cup function, it tells you what meals are included. They're on the agenda, and we could lay that out. And have it help. We can assist you with that.
Right. It also puts me on, like, when you do that, and you know, Karen, you'll find this out when you get it, because that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get off of the League of California Cities at the last thing. But you know, it puts you on their regiment for when you eat is essentially what they're saying. So if your breakfast is at 8 and you don't make it, and you go buy your own breakfast, then you're not getting reimbursed. You know, so it's just.
Well, there's got to be some honesty involved here. I mean, if you don't eat their breakfast and you do pay for one, then you should get the money. You should
but
get
the
reimbursed.
policy says that you don't. I'm just saying.
Right, because the meals are provided by the conference. You're paying, say, $500 to go to the conference, and it covers breakfast, lunch for 2 days. We're not going to give you the per diem to cover that.
Right. So I was just looking for is maybe just considering just a per day travel, you know, allotment. I don't know. It just kind of gets into these, you know, one of the reasons why I'm just explaining why I don't even want to go to this anymore is just because of these things, you know. And on top of all that, you know, when I'm there, I'm just losing money. You know, that's my work week. You know, I can't take vacation. Maybe Karen can use up her vacation to get paid for 3 days while she's there. Maybe she can't. I'm just saying these are things would like to point out.
You don't have to participate. You don't have to go.
No,
it's not a requirement.
I'm not. I'm just saying this is the reason why I'm not. I'm trying to relax back on that. You know what I mean? Because it does get a little out of control.
We can look at providing a daily amount, the $64 a day, you know, less, if we know, and we can use the, you know, 10, 15, 25 amounts to deduct if we know that you're going to have a breakfast involved. I do have to check. It has to be an accountable plan. We have to identify, you know, some receipts for the hotel and things like that in order for it to not be considered income to you as a person. Otherwise, the IRS would consider that a fringe benefit. So
Got it.
we have to manage that. It has to be an accountable plan and receipted and accounted for at the end of the day. So, but we can figure out some ways. I don't like the form either, so we can. I've already updated one that I use, but we can do some things to make it a little bit easier also to account for it at the end of the day.
Got it.
And I think if you had a receipt for a breakfast that you paid for a breakfast even though the event had it, we would have reimbursed you for it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
I'll never keep track of that,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm just not going to charge for it. That's just me, but I'm just making these things aware, you know, because that's what anyone, you know, that is up here is going to have to deal with. And anyone that runs for office, they're going to have to deal with that.
But we
yeah.
are here to assist. So I mean, if we easily could on the league stuff prepare a kind of a pre-travel thing for you, and it'd tell you what meals are X'd out or not. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I have a question about airfare. So for airfare, how is that reimbursed?
It would be actual airfare. You'll get the cost of the airfare. There's no limitation to
Okay.
it per our code.
Does that mean we can go first class?
Well, so just explain, if you
Thank
read
you.
how
I
this.
wanted to clarify
If
that.
you read how that is, it's really the council members' discretion on what they claim and don't claim. So, I mean, I guess you could claim first class. Now, really, ultimately, the council's approving each of these travel payments when it comes before you as a demand. So, you know, they could say, well, you shouldn't have went first class.
Does anyone
I
in
mean,
Solvang ever have to fly to?
No, I would say that the procedure or the policy should be at the lowest economic fare.
Hey, I'll tell you what.
Because
if you
that's a
put
gift
first
of public
class,
funds to sit up in first
you're
class.
not going to be sitting in that seat.
So when I go to these league events, I can fly instead of
Sure.
driving?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
You don't make
First
much money
class.
that way.
Private jet out of San Ynez? Or?
That's the most economic.
Well, I guess one of the evaluations to look at would be the most economical way to
Yes.
go.
Right.
If you can drive at the mileage rate for half the price of flying, I mean, sometimes it's a scheduling issue, I get that, but I think one of the considerations, if we were to bring a travel policy back with this reimbursement, would be to go the most economical way of travel. Being public servants,
Right.
you know, flying first class, that's something you'd want to evaluate.
And you don't want to take a free train ride. Because that California Constitution will kick you out of office.
Yeah.
Very
Railroad
true.
laws, railroad laws are crazy.
So we'll bring back a revised reimbursement policy for discussion. Hopefully, we'll
Yeah.
try to capture all these.
Just
comments.
things to think about.
Yeah,
that,
no,
you know, it's just,
no. It's an antiquated form for sure. So.
sure. I mean, I only brought up the flight issue
but I'm also
because
trying to be sensitive to
some
someone that works for someone else. Because if you're
corporations
you know, like,
will
you're retired, so
allow an employee to fly if it's more than a certain number of miles or hours drive to a location. So that's why I brought that up.
Yeah, and we've not, as Councilmember Toussaint, it's not a frequent occurrence, people flying to conferences and from Solvang, so.
But it may become one.
It's, the code says actual and necessary expense, so I guess you'd have to prove that it's necessary you fly first class.
I don't mean first class. I just mean to fly, period.
All right, have we got
Yeah, I think we have direction on the changes you'd like. We'll bring those back for the council to
Yes.
approve.
item 8?
Item 8, an ordinance amending Title I, Chapter 4, City Council of the Solvang Municipal Code, adjusting public comment speaker time.
Staff report?
As you will recall, at your October 23rd meeting, you discussed the possibility of changing the time, and staff brought before you the first reading of that ordinance to remove the set time from the ordinance and make it as established by resolution. So what you have before you tonight is that second reading of that, which would enact the change to the city code that says it would be set by resolution. And then attached to this is a resolution that would set a 3-minute time limit. So it's up to the council to decide if that's the, first to approve the ordinance amendment, and if that's the case, then it'll become set by resolution, and then for you to determine what time you would like to be included in that resolution. 3 is the one that's in the staff report.
Any questions to staff report? Seeing none, then we'll go to the public for comment. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Who would like to start? I will make a motion. It'll be 2 motions. The staff recommendation number 1, which is to adopt the ordinance. Can I have a second?
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Will we call the roll, please?
Mayor Richardson?
Yes?
Councilmember Waite?
Yes.
Councilmember Jameson?
Yes.
Councilmember Toussaint?
yes.
Councilmember Zimmerman?
Yes.
All right, then I'm making a motion on recommendation number 2 to adopt the resolution setting a 3-minute time limit on public speaker comment time. Can I have a second?
You know, we had 4 people speak tonight. All needed well over 5 minutes. and were all granted well over 5 minutes. So I just see this as a little unnecessary at this point in time, especially if we're going to do that tonight and then say we're going to lower this down to 3 minutes.
The option of allowing cutting back and forth the time it rests with the mayor, and in that and my judgment tonight was that it should be longer. So that doesn't happen all of the time. But it was a relaxed evening and those sorts of things, that I felt that was adequate to do.
And I just feel like it kind of turns to this selective hearing of who gets to speak longer, and then it requires more action by the council, because in order for us to increase that, we'd have to get 3 people to override your 3 minute. I think is what I'm understanding.
I think the ordinance reads that the protocols we have. That's almost a joke. It requires allows the mayor to reduce that time or extend that time, and you did that.
Right. No, I was pretty, yeah. Especially when you came up. But no, but I think it is. Can you clarify that, Brad? How that? Because I thought I read in there that the only way to override that is for the council to.
Well, to permanently change it, you'd have to do another resolution to change it from
permanent
3.
change.
3 would be the set time. So, yeah, there always is the prerogative by the mayor to change. I mean, he can increase it.
No, I understand that, but I could have sworn I read through the policies. There's somewhere in there where it says that even though the mayor can do that, it would take 3 city council members to decide to overrule it, to either keep it at the 5 minutes.
Well, any decision by the mayor can be overruled by the council. It doesn't have to be just that. It can be any of them.
Yeah, and I think that's in the protocols.
Right.
No,
I
think
I see what you're saying.
Where it was, though, I think it was completely related to speaking time, and it was talking about how, yes, the mayor can, arbitrarily change that around. That's his prerogative. But that if the council feels that to be unnecessary at the time, then 3 could overrule. So an example would be
takes a majority.
If you all of a sudden said, "Hey, I'm going to limit to 3 minutes," tonight, then the council could overrule that with a majority 3 vote.
Motion, right? That's right. Anything like that can be overruled by the council with a motion. You bet.
Yeah, that may be written into the protocols, but as he said, without that in the protocols, it still would be the case. The council, the vote of 3 could override what the mayor has chosen.
No, I completely understand that. Yeah, but it was just relating to speaking time where it fluctuates.
I don't have the protocols in front of me, but I think that's where it was. It's in the code. Okay.
So I'm just trying to make sure everything makes sense here. But again, I'm just I'm fine with the 3 minute limitation, but I'm just saying, we generally don't have too much of a problem, and we typically do give people a little bit more time, and I think we do really good at regulating it back when we have for example, the last issue, we brought it down to 3 minutes. I'm not sure if it should be a 3 minute all the time kind of deal.
The reason for the 3 minutes went because there were what's the word I want to use? I'm trying to think of a word that somebody was abusing the time limits, and so in order to reduce that occurrence, we went to a 3 minute, just like any other organization in the county. It's a 3 minute time limit, and we can reduce that, and we have, and we can extend that. So there's a motion on the floor, and I'm looking for a second.
May I just ask a question? Does that 3 minutes, is that just for public comment on specific projects, or does that also apply to when there is an applicant presenting a project?
An applicant is a different situation.
Okay.
Presentations are different.
Okay, and how?
Like 15 minutes or something.
Yeah, they're allowed a time.
And there's
10 or 15,
someplace
20
in
minutes, depending on
our code, or?
And the
I don't believe
presentations
there's
are
a
made.
limitation in the code on an applicant's time. I don't think
No.
that's written anywhere. But yeah, that is the presumption is when they're
But then they're an agendized item, and they
yeah.
then they're out of that. But it would limit someone to even 3 minutes on an agendized item from the public to speak on it.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay.
Right, and that's kind of what I wanted to clarify to you is that in most meetings that I've been to, the 3 minutes is standard, especially for the public comment in the beginning of the meeting when you aren't going to make a decision or really comment on what they are speaking about, so it's appropriate. And then it's at the chairman of the board or the mayor's discretion usually during the meeting if it's an agenda item, if you want to give them more time.
I'm still looking for a second.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded.
Can you repeat that, what that is?
Yeah.
It's
Adopt a resolution setting a 3-minute time limit on public speaker comment time. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Richardson?
Yes.
Councilmember Waite?
Yes.
Councilmember Jameson?
Yes.
Councilmember Toussaint?
No.
Councilmember Zimmerman?
Yeah.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Just to clarify, this won't take effect till February 7th because the ordinance takes 30 days to be effective.
Right. Okay. That passed 4-1. I think that's the last agenda. Council member reports. Do we have any?
Oh, that's
Any? No reports. With that, then, if there are any other comments, we'll stand adjourned.